Hey guys, this is Swolbi and Kenobi, and I'd like to welcome you to my attempt at a hardcore Nuzlocke in Pokemon Emerald using only the fighting type. When I was a kid and Pokemon Ruby and Emerald released in 2002, I was 6 years old. So although I had already played through both Pokemon Red and Pokemon Crystal, the Hoenn games were my first Pokemon games that I was really able to get the handle on and kind of work my way through while remaining fairly underleveled. At least compared to how I beat Pokemon Red when I was 4 with a level 87 Charizard and a level 72 Tauros. But with a new grasp on the game led to something I hadn't seen coming. A new kind of challenge. When my 6-year-old self managed to claw my way through the first 3 members of the Elite Four in Pokemon Ruby almost entirely with the level 52 Blaziken and a quickly dwindling bag of items, I was not prepared for the wall that stood before me in the room of the 4th member. After failing to beat Drake with a single-leveled Pokemon and a team of side characters I had largely used primarily for HMs up until this point, I left frustrated and humbled. When Emerald came out 2 years later, my copy of Ruby had been reset and replayed countless times, until I was left with a save file housing 400 hours of playtime and a living dex of all of the Pokemon available in Hoenn before I even knew what the term meant. But when Emerald came out, it once again changed the game for my then 8-year-old mind. Updated boss battles, a new 8th gym, a new champion, both Ruby and Sapphire's box legendaries in the game, and some weird Braille puzzle system involving a Wailord and a Relicanth. Emerald set the standard for what it meant to be a 3rd game in the Pokemon franchise. Seeing Rayquaza descend from the heavens to bitch smack Kyogre and Groudon for acting like chumps when I was a kid, I found out in that moment what it meant to be a true legendary Pokemon, and I went on to rack up another 300 hours in the Hoenn region by the time Sinnoh came out. So today, I find myself making my way back to Hoenn during my journey to prove the supremacy of fighting-type Pokemon. Because the 3rd gen of Pokemon games was originally pitched to be a full fresh start like the Unova region would go on to be, the increase in numbers from the Gen 2 to Gen 3 Pokedex almost doubled the number of Pokemon. And where Gen 2 only offered 2 new fighting-type encounters in the forms of Hitmontop and Heracross, the Hoenn region is home to our 4 new fighting-type Pokemon: Medicham, Hariyama, Breloom, and Blaziken. Unfortunately, Metatype isn't an encounter in Pokemon Emerald, so I'm left to throw in Machamp and Heracross as returning Pokemon for Gen 3, leaving me with 5 total encounters for my Nuzlocke. So with that being said, I find myself in the back of a moving van approaching my new home. When I arrive, whoever was driving unlocks the door for me and I head inside to where I see my mom. Dad is of course nowhere to be found, but Vigoroth are seen walking around doing all of the lifting for the move, so it's good to know that even if he's going to be an absentee father, he's still going to get things done around the house. Mom tells me to go and meet our neighbor's daughter, which I do, before then finding her dad, a Pokemon professor, running and screaming in panic from a level 2 Zigzagoon. I don't want to tell him how to do his job, but I think he's doing it wrong. He asks for my help, and in his bag I find something amazing. Not only our starter for the run, but a starter that we're going to be able to use, as we have in our possession the first in Nintendo's line of firefighting obsessed starters, Torchic. With the aid of our new chicken friend, we save Professor Birch from the horrifying raccoon before heading back to the lab where he tells us that we can actually keep the fire-type Pokemon. We name our first encounter Jeff, before the professor asks us to go and help him check on his daughter, who sometimes helps him with his research. After making our way through Route 101 and Oldale Town, we find May on Route 103. She says she's going to give us a taste of what it means to be a trainer with a quick battle, and we find ourselves in the middle of what appears to be a rival fight. But that doesn't seem right. On turn 1, Jeff hits a soft scratch, and the rival's Mudkip hits a weak tackle, and something seems off, wrong. On the 2nd turn, Jeff hits another weak scratch. Not quite right, it's just horribly incorrect, and this feeling is cemented as the rival's Mudkip gets a critical hit on the 2nd turn. Twisted, contorted, another weak scratch, another soft tackle from rival May's May. Rival May. Where's Nancy? Who's this? Jeff is taken out with another critical hit tackle. We lose our first attempt as we find ourselves in an unpassionate rival battle against some random stranger. But on attempt 2, we know what's ahead of us and we plan accordingly. This May isn't going to catch us by surprise this time. And with my lesson learned, I find myself with my 2nd Torchic, Jeff 2. Jeff 2's cool head and calm under duress leads him through the methodical fight against May's Mudkip, as he shows that this time, her non-Nancy offness won't catch him by surprise, even managing to finish off Mudkip with a critical hit of his own. From here, Jeff 2 and I make our way to Petalburg City, where I figure I'll drop by and give my dad a chance to try and be a parent for once, thinking maybe he'll redeem himself before I come back at a later date with some unresolved issues with a team of type advantageous Pokemon. At which point, he saddles me with the responsibility of being a parent and gives me some strange sickly green child named Wally, who I take to catch a Pokemon of his own. He chances upon a Ralts and begins his own journey of trying to assert me with the type advantageous team. Alright, what the hell. It's after this that I'm able to move forward with my gym challenge, but with a bit of a hiccup. Although Jeff 2 will evolve into a fighting-type Combuskin at level 16, the cap for the first gym is 15, meaning I'm not going to have access to a true fighting type until the second gym. Because of this, I go ahead and I pick up my second encounter as well, in the Petalburg Woods, a Shroomish that we name Jan. Shroomish is another Pokemon who will one day evolve into a fighting type, but seeing as I don't have the chance for either of my pre-evolutions to reach the correct type, I'm going to go ahead and allow the use of both of them against the Rustboro City Gym Leader, Roxanne.
You don't have to put on the red light.
However, before I'm able to make it out of Petalburg Woods, I run into an employee from the Devon Corporation, who appears to be looking for a Shroomish. Sorry, buddy, no clue where you could get one. All of a sudden, some guy claiming to be from Team Aqua shows up and attempts to rob the Devon co-employee, who hide behind me for protection. After dealing with the Poochyena and sending the grunt running with his tail between his legs, the Devon employee thanks me and gives me a great ball, and runs off to complete his delivery. But if he had a great ball that whole time... Now for the first time, I'm left to wonder how exactly transportation is supposed to work in the Pokemon universe. You're telling me this multi-million-dollar company can't send a guy on a delivery in a car or something? Like, I get that maybe Pokemon travel is locked behind the ability to defeat certain gym leaders, but what about normal mechanical transportation? And why is the employee with the super important Devon goods just freeballing life with no Pokemon? Doesn't everyone get their first Pokemon partner at 10? Or is that just some, elite class of citizen who doesn't concern themselves with the lower echelons of plebeians? But even then, wouldn't a super illustrious company be able to afford to send goods with someone who is capable of protecting them? Whatever. My tangent over. I'm out of the Petalburg Woods, and not only that, I've made my way through Rustboro's gym trainers, and I find myself in front of the gym leader, Roxanne. With my team as prepared as they can be, we head into battle for my first badge. Roxanne starts the fight off with her first Geodude, as I lead in with Jeff 2. On turn 1, I switch into Jan, as Roxanne's Geodude goes for a soft Rock Tomb, lowering Jan's speed. On the next turn, Jan is able to hit the Geodude hard with a quad super effective Absorb, healing to full HP before taking another Rock Tomb and another speed drop. Roxanne then heals up with the potion, as Jan is able to take the Geodude back to the red. A third Rock Tomb does little damage as the second Absorb finishes the rock and heals Jan to full HP. As planned, both Jeff 2 and Jan are able to level up to 16, as Roxanne sends out her second Geodude. Unfortunately for her, Jan learns Mega Drain with the level up, and with that, this battle is all but over. A Drain takes out the second Geodude, as a Leech Seed, a Stun Spore, and a few Mega Drains will take out Roxanne's Ace Nosepass with no issue, fear on the Rock's face as he is able to smell the danger in front of him. With Roxanne taken care of, my level cap is increased to 19, and Jeff 2 is able to evolve right in the Rustboro gym to flex a bit on Roxanne. Unfortunately, this means that I now have a fighting type encounter, so I am going to have to put Jan away in the PC until I'm able to evolve her at a higher level cap. As I'm getting ready to leave the city and head to my second gym, I see a familiar sight, as a Team Aqua grunt runs past me, a distressed Devon co-employee trailing after him. The employee sees me when I go to check out what went down, and he asks for my help against the grunt once more. I head to Rustboro Tunnel, where I see that the Aqua grunt has taken an old man's Wingull as a hostage. I back the grunt into a corner and face him down. One double kick later, Mr. Briny has Pico back, and the Devon employee is taking me to the Devon Corporation headquarters to meet someone. Turns out that it's the president of the entire company, Mr. Stone, who asks me to finish the delivery of the Devon goods over to Slateport Docks myself, as well as taking a letter to his son Steven in Dewford Town. Well, at least they're wising up to send deliveries with people who are actually carrying Pokemon, but a 10-year-old? Baby steps, I guess. I make my way from the Devon building, ignore Not Nancy as I leave the city, and make my way south of Petalburg Woods, where I can find Mr. Briny and Pico playing an endless game of tag. I interrupt the purgatory and get a ride on Briny's boat to Dewford. When we arrive, we head straight to the Granite Cave, where we find our third encounter of the run, a Makuhita. We name our Makuhita Tom, and take him on an EV training tour through the rest of the Dark Cavern. We meet Steven at the end of the cave, who seems to think it's amusing that I would run a team of fighting types, and almost as an insult, he gives me the Steel Wing TM, as thanks for delivering the letter. But with my task complete, I finish training up my team, as well as head over to Slateport, where I take down some beachgoers and grab some items I'll need in the future. From here, I make my way back to Dewford with my team set for the second gym battle, making sure to stop by the first house on the island to pick up this dude's scarf before heading to take on Brawley. He leads the battle with his Machop as I send in Jeff 2. On the first turn, Jeff 2 is able to take Machop to a third of his HP as he hits back with a weak Seismic Toss. Jeff 2 is then able to finish the Machop as Brawley sends in his Metatite. This Metatite doesn't actually end up doing anything other than losing his focus, so it's an easy KO leading to Brawley's final Pokemon, his own Makuhita. On the first turn, Jeff 2 lands an Ember for about a third of the fighting type mon's health, which also ends up getting a burn. I didn't know it when it happened, but this Makuhita has Thick Fat as opposed to Guts, which is a blessing, as Brawley has the Pokemon go for an attack boosting Bulk Up on his first turn out. Jeff 2 is then able to hit Makuhita just into the red with a double kick, as he does take a Vital Throw in return. The burn damage just barely doesn't get the KO, so Brawley uses a Super Potion on the following turn, as another double kick and burn damage leave Makuhita around half health. With one final double kick, Jeff 2 is able to leave Makuhita at what must be less than 5 health points. In return, Makuhita uses Reversal. Jeff 2's HP shoots down to just 3 remaining. Oh man, if he'd had Guts, this fight would have killed Jeff 2 for sure. Thankfully, the burn damage is able to finish the battle, earning me my second gym badge. From here, I take Mr. Briney's boat back to Slateport, where I head to the museum to drop off the Devon goods with Captain Stern. The museum is backed up with a massive line of Aqua grunts, which means your mom must be in there giving away freebies again. I meet up with Stern's assistant, who reaffirms that the captain is indeed at the museum, so I head back when the line is a bit shorter. When I finally make it inside and up the stairs to Captain Stern, we're ambushed by some Aqua grunts from downstairs. Tom is able to take care of the thugs, which leaves us to meet the leader of Team Aqua, Archie. He warns us of getting in the way of his plans, and then just leaves without what he came to steal, despite like 8 other thugs being downstairs and he himself having a healthy team. But this is fine with me, because I have 2 much bigger concerns on the horizon. Not Nancy and Wattson. The first of the 2 is right ahead of us on the next route that connects us to Mauville Town, and the third gym challenge against Leader Wattson, but before we go to take her on, we take the time to get Jan right up under the level cap, where she's able to evolve into the powerhouse Breloom. Now that I have a fully evolved Pokemon on my team with an absolutely ridiculous attack stat, I'm ready to take on that one rival person. She starts the battle off with her Ringle, as we lead off with Jan. Having given her the Silk Scarf, she starts off with a Headbutt, and gets the one-hit KO. August then sends in her Slugma, who similarly goes down in another hit. Last out for our fill-in rival is her Ace Marsh Stomp. On her first turn, she just barely makes it through a Mega Drain from Jan, who takes a weak Mud Shot in return. The Marsh Stomp goes down on the next turn with one final Headbutt. After that phenomenal display, I'm feeling pretty confident about our fight ahead of us. But before I head to the gym, I first decide to go through the trouble of getting Jeff 2 the Flamethrower TM from the game corner. Now, it was at this point in my run that I decided to take a break from the Nuzlocke, having spent a good 40 minutes playing the slot machines at 1,000 times speed, just trying to force my way through the process. And unfortunately for me, when I came back to my Game Boy Advanced, after a breather, my game was completely crashed. I loaded the file back up, and I found myself all the way back at Little Root Town. I rushed through everything I'd already done up to that point as fast as I could, though that being the case I did accidentally name Tom Jan, as well as name a male Shroomish Jan on this go-round, but I do end up noticing both of those things eventually. Everything fixed? All good? Okay, back to the run. With my lost progress restored, I head to the gym to challenge Wattson, but I find my adoptive sickly son Wally standing outside with his uncle. He says he's strong enough to challenge the gym and wants to have a Pokemon battle with me to prove it. Jan very quickly disproves it, and Wally is left to contemplate his entire existence as he sadly walks home. Maybe next time I see you, you'll be able to make me proud. The weird Scott guy shows up and says that he was watching the battle, but that would have been literally impossible from where he was standing. No more obstacles in my way, I head into the gym, where I find a myriad of obstacles in my way. I handle the trainers, and deal with the puzzle, even evolving my Tom/Jan Makuhita into a Hariyama, which I'd actually forgotten that he does at level 24. Now feeling even more confident with our chances, I set up my team with Cherry Berries for all and head into the battle against Gym Leader Wattson. He leads off the battle with a Voltorb, as I send in Jan. Jan finishes the Pokeball Pokemon with a single Headbutt, and manages to level up off the experience. Next out for Wattson is his Electrike, which goes down to another Headbutt, not even getting a static proc on Jan. Jan is able to Mach Punch the following Magneton into Oblivion, which leaves Wattson with his ace Pokemon Manectric. On the first turn, Jan whiffs a Leech Seed, as he is hit in return with the Thunder Wave. Jan is outsped the next turn due to the paralysis, as Manectric just goes for Howl, allowing Jan to land their second Leech Seed. Manectric then once again outspeeds going for Quick Attack, but the electrified Pooch gets hit by Jan's Effect Spore, ending up poisoned. To top it off, Jen makes it through paralysis to land a headbutt that brings Manectric to a citrus berry before Leech Seed damage. On the following turn, I switch Jan out for Tom, also Jan, who tanks a Shockwave well. After Leech Seed and poison damage, Wattson uses a super potion, allowing Tom to land a fake out, though I could have gone for something more damaging. More Leech Life damage means Tom is almost at full health, so he takes another Shockwave easily before finishing off the Electric-type gym leader with a Vital Throw. Still not having noticed my naming and gender continuity errors, I continue on, grabbing the Rock Smash HM from the Rock Smash dude, and on Route 111 I get into a double battle where Jan and Jan fight side by side, and my mistake finally dawns on me. I make a mental note to fix it later using the Pokehacks application, which I did create my Pokewalker encounters with on my Heart Gold Nuzlocke, but I don't take the time to do that for a little while. What I do get to do is find my 4th encounter of the run when I make it to the Fiery Path, a Machop that I name Carl. Carl marks our 2nd encounter with Guts, which is an excellent ability to have on any fighting type Pokemon, but especially a Pokemon that'll have the ridiculous attack stat that Machamp is going to have. I push through the rest of Route 111 and make it to Fall Arbor Town, where I'm able to get the Dig TM from a Maniac's little brother. Just up ahead past Route 113 is Meteor Falls, where I find Team Magma and Team Aqua in a confrontation over a scientist's meteorite. The fire lovers make off with the space rock, claiming that they were going to make Mount Chimney erupt with it. Somehow. So at the request of absolutely no one, I take my 10-year-old self to Rustboro, through the Wishmere Cave, and past some Starcross lovers, and all the way up the gondola to the top of Mount Chimney, where there is a collection of dancing Poochyena. Holy crap, look at Archie's Pooch go! It's at this point, after another double battle with the Magma Grunts, that I remember Jan and Jan are having an identity crisis, and I fix the issue, finally restoring the timeline to its proper state, and ensuring that Doctor Who would continue for yet another season at the request of absolutely no one. We come face to face with Maxie, who goes on a villainous monologue, acknowledges that it was pointless, and then challenges us to a battle. He starts the battle off with the Mightyena, as we lead in with Tom, Return to Glory. Tom flinches Mightyena on the first turn, before taking a sand attack on the following turn, which amounts to nothing as a Vital Throw takes out the Dark-type dog. Out next for Maxie is his Zubat, who was outsped and knocked out in a single Rock Tomb. Lastly is Maxie's ace, Camerupt, who hits a Magnitude 6 for low damage before being knocked to half by Vital Throw. Camerupt then throws the fight with the Focus Energy, but Tom actually just barely misses out on the KO with the low roll. But from here, the battle is all but over, as Maxie is caught up in a healing cycle until Tom is able to end the fight. On the way down the mountain, I get my team closer to the level cap and evolve Carl into a Machoke, before arriving at Lava Ridge Town. Before the battle, I head over to the Fiery Path to find a Torkoal, which will be our primary source of pre-burning and poisoning our Pokemon to activate Guts before key fights. With our setup done, we face off against Flannery, who seems to be having some issues deciding what type of gym leader she wants to be. Although she seems nervous, I'm not taking her lightly, as her team's Sunny Day and Overheat combo is enough to melt even the most fire-resistant of teams, but I've got a plan. Flannery starts off the battle with her first Pokemon, a Numel, as I lead in with a Poison Carl. Without any waiting around, Carl decimates Flannery's Numel with a single strength, repeating the task against her second Pokemon, Slugma. Out third for Flannery is her Camerupt, who hits Carl hard with an Overheat just down to 16 health, as Carl is able to finish the Flaming Camel with a powerful revenge. I was actually prepared to sacrifice Carl for the win here, but he manages to survive the poison damage with just 6 HP. So at this point, I decide to forego my plans, as I have no idea if Torkoal's going to go for the kill or set up a Sunny Day, so I swap Carl out into Tom, who's my most bulky available Pokemon. I get lucky, as Torkoal has ended up using an Overheat. Nice. With Torkoal's Wide Herb used up, I have Tom do some chip damage with a Rock Tomb, expecting another Overheat to finish off my bulky boy, but Torkoal just goes for an Attract. With this fortunate set of events, I take the next turn to swap into Jeff 2, who tanks the following Overheat extremely well. From here, I immediately pivot back into Jan and get the best roll possible as Torkoal goes for an ineffective Attract. With Torkoal's special attack lowered, I'm confident enough to risk a crit and leave Jan in, who does okay damage with the Headbutt, as Torkoal just wastes yet another turn setting up the Sunny Day. I guess Flannery wanted to try and secure at least one knockout, but it's too little too late, as another Headbutt from Jan is able to knock out the Fiery Turtle, finishing the battle and securing my 4th gym badge. With my team looking extremely worse for wear, I leave the gym and run into who else but the Nancy replacement. She gives me some goggles to get through the desert, but I actually won't be using the sandstorm-ridden location for anything other than heading up to the meteor scientist, who gives us the return TM. With my new move secured, I make my way to Petalburg Gym, where I plan to show my dad just how strong our fighting types are. With his gym trainers taken care of, extremely easily given our type advantage, I make my way to my father Norman. He just says that he's excited to battle his child, which pretty much sums up our entire relationship, and we start our battle. Norman sends out his Spinda, as I lead in with Jan. Jan is able to outspeed on the first turn and land a one-hit KO with Mach Punch. Out second for my dad is Vigoroth, who survives the first Mach Punch and hits back with a slash, doing a third of Jan's health. Norman then wastes a Hyper Potion as Jan gets a higher roll with the second Mach Punch. Third out for Norman is his Linoon, who's also going down to a single Mach Punch. Last out for Norman is his monstrous Slacking. On the first turn, I switch from Jan to Carl, who manages to avoid a counter from the beast. Slacking then loafs around as I have Carl go for a dig. Unfortunately, Slacking uses the following turn to hit a hard counter after dig does next to nothing, so I use Strength on the following loafing turn, and then resume my dig strategy after his loafing turns switch. I get unfortunate and take a yawn on one of my turns topside, forcing me to switch into Jeff 2 on an extremely hard facade. I auto-switch into Tom on Slacking's following loafing turn, before causing a flinch on turn 1 with a fake out. Tom is then able to outspeed Slacking with a Vital Throw, as the hulking monster attempts to hit another counter, but the Vital Throw was enough to finish the battle. That was a lot harder than I'd actually given my dad credit for. I guess he's actually training all the times that he's never home. After the battle, Wally's dad stops by at the gym to invite me to his house. He thanks me for de-twinkifying his son and lets us have the Surf HM. Something that I glossed over a bit right there was the absolute powerhouse of the run, the Facade TM, but more on that later. I head to Route 18 and make my way across the water to head north towards the next gym badge, but not before hitting up the berry house and beginning our infinite stock of citrus berries. From there, we head north to Route 119, where the rain is missing for once, meaning I get a nice relaxing bike ride until I'm rudely interrupted at the Weather Institute by a bunch of Team Aqua grunts. I let Carl go on a rampage inside, the grunts not knowing that their Pokemon are in danger due to my team's new pescatarian diet, and we leave the Weather Institute with some good gains and full bellies. As I leave, and head towards the next city, I'm stopped by good old Not Nancy, who says she's been looking forward to seeing how strong my Pokemon are. Fortunately for her, Jan is more than happy to give such a demonstration, only taking a fake out and a weak mud shot. For beating her, May gives me the Fly HM and bikes away in sadness. At which point the weird Scott guy walks up to me and gives me a high five for bullying girls. I guess he's not all bad. I make it to Fort Tree City, and I'm able to get one of the most beneficial TMs of the run, Hidden Power. Now that I have the base TM, I can head all the way back to Slateport City, where I'm able to buy a Hidden Power TM for each of our team members. We're also fortunate to run into Steven, who gives us a way to access the invisible Pokemon in the way of the next gym, though he does make yet another snide remark about fighting types. Even better than getting rid of these invisible Pokemon is using them to test out the hidden power types of my team, which gives me the following information. Jeff 2 has Hidden Power Ice, Carl has Hidden Power Bug, Jan has Hidden Power Ghost, and Tom has Hidden Power Ground. Some good variation and some nice type coverage that we didn't have access to yet, but what I'm most excited for is Jeff 2's Ice typing. I now have a pretty good plan as to how I'm going to be able to handle the monstrous challenge ahead of us that is the flying type gym leader Winona. With that being said, we start the battle. Winona starts off with her Swablu, as I lead in with Jeff 2. On the first turn, Jeff 2 hits Swablu with a hard hidden power, leaving the Cloudbird with just a tick of health left, as Winona has Swablu use a hidden power of her own, doing 2 damage to Jeff 2. Winona heals on the next turn, allowing Jeff 2 to knock out her Swablu with 1 more higher roll hidden power. Next out for the gym leader is her Steelbird Skarmory, who looks intimidating, but unfortunately, Jeff 2 is able to melt Jet Pokemon with a Flamethrower, and I don't think I even need to mention the same thing happening to Winona's next Pokemon, Tropius. Out fourth is the concerning Pokemon, Winona's Pelipper. Pelipper isn't necessarily a threat, unless you're counting threats to my mental health and overall sanity, as this supersonic and protect spamming abomination takes over 10 turns without doing a single point of damage to just die. No purpose on this earth other than being a little who takes up a good 3 minutes of my life that I'll never get back. Last out for Winona is her ace, Altaria. I had been planning on an overheat strat with Jeff 2 until I found out about Hidden Power, so now I'm just going to risk a crit, and if I don't get the one-hit KO, Jeff 2 just barely misses out on the KO. If Altaria goes for Dragon Dance, I can still outspeed and finish her on the next turn. But she goes for Earthquake. My heart stops as I wait for Jeff 2's health bar to stop moving. And no crit. Jeff 2's Citrus Berry activates, and with 1 more hidden power, the Flying Cloud Dragon goes down. After I leave the gym, I get a phone call from a now confirmed stalker, Scott, who just straight up admits to keeping tabs on me this time. Is he actually checking on all strong trainers? Is there a particular reason he picked the 10-year-old? Should someone be putting this guy on some kind of watch list? On the walk through routes 120 and 121, we see some Aqua runs talking about going to Mount Pirate after some Team Magma members, but before I go to investigate what that could be about, I finish my trek to Lily Cove and find myself at the contest hall. It's here that I go ahead and set up some red Pokeblocks so that I can guarantee a good nature on our next encounter in the Safari Zone. Before we head over there, I go ahead and do some quick leveling against the trainers I skipped along routes 120 and 121 to get Jeff 2 to evolve into a powerful Blaziken, as well as getting Carl to be the first Machop in our Nuzlocke series to reach his full potential as a monstrous Machamp. And with our team evolved into a certified Swole Squad, I go and remind What's-Her-Name that she's no Nancy, and that she never will be. There's only room in my heart for one eternal rival hatred, and it's definitely not April here. Carl finishes punching each of June's Pokemon 37 times, and we make our way to the Safari Zone to catch our next Pokemon. With our Pokeblock set, we run around until we finally get what we're looking for, a Heracross. We catch the bug fighting type after 4 Safari Balls, but we weren't at risk of losing the encounter due to our Pokeblock. And with that, Bob the Heracross joins the team. With this final encounter, we're able to check and see, yes, yet another fighting type Pokemon with the Guts ability. With that, we now have the Pokemon that will be teaching our ace in the hole, Facade. Facade is a 70 base power move that becomes a 140 base power move if the user has a status condition. Add in the damage boost granted by Guts, as well as a held Silk Scarf, and Heracross is a nightmare that doesn't even need to set up to sweep. Our nuclear arsenal acquired, we head to Mount Pyre to see what's going on with Teams Aqua and Magma. Apparently, Team Magma is long gone with some blue orb, as Team Aqua decides to book it with the red orb. I'm left to take some fancy Magma emblem that was lying on the ground. This is one of those moments that I love looking back on that they just don't have in the newer games. Like, as an 8-year-old, I didn't have a clue where I was supposed to take this medallion, and I sure as hell didn't remember the weird magma grunt on the way down from Mount Chimney. Not quite as bad as Braille, but definitely frustrating until my search of every single route finally came to fruition. No problems with that all these years later, as my team of elite fighting types and I make our way to the Magma base. I make quick work of all the grunts in the cave, though my pre-poison and burnt Pokemon do need a few super potions to make sure that they're healthy before each battle. With the cavern traversed, and Bob itching for his first real fight of the Nuzlocke, I come face to face with Maxie, making sure to style on him for an intimidation factor. He ignores me and uses a blue orb on a red legendary, which goes predictably wrong. Choosing to blame me, he challenges me to battle. He starts off with his Mightyena, who gets an Intimidate off on Bob, but it's not enough to hinder him as his burn status keeps him at base attack, letting him finish the dog off with a Brick Break. Out next for the Magma leader is his Crobat, who gets outsped and absolutely demolished by a 140 base Powder Facade. The same thing goes for Maxie's bulky Camerupt, proving that not even a type advantage is enough to slow down Bob. Can he beat them? Yes, he can. With Maxie taken care of, I head to Slateport City so that I can progress the Team Aqua storyline, which entails watching Captain Stern get his submarine stolen, and then flying to Lily Cove to try and get it back for him. Standard 10-year-old crime-solving work. I make my way through the base quickly, just to get stopped by an Aqua admin who should probably find a different day job, before having to watch the submarine take off before I can stop it. So until I can find some way to follow them, I guess I'll just have to continue on with my gym challenge. With that being said, the next gym is the Moss Deep City Gym, which is home to gym leaders Tate and Liza of the Psychic type, one of my natural enemies. I'm going to have my work cut out for myself trying to turn these predators into prey. Fortunately, most of the gym trainers can be fought in double battles, which means having Tom and Bob out in the field together as a lethal fake-out and one-hit combo squad that leaves the other trainers unable to fight back at all, leaving their typing pointless in the face of our overwhelming strength. Or our overwhelming facade, as it were. With the trainers taken care of, we head back to the Fiery Pass to activate Guts on our trio, and then head back to take on Tate and Liza. The twins tell me what we already knew, that there are 2 gym leaders and that this will be a double battle. They claim they have the advantage because they can psychically communicate and coordinate their Pokemon's attacks and plans, but I mean, I'm in charge of both Pokemon on my team, so I don't have to read anyone's mind. I can just tell both Pokemon what to do. So that odd speech out of the way, Tate and Liza start off with their Xatu and Claydol, as I send in Bob and Carl. On the first turn, Bob finishes Xatu in a single critical hit Facade, as Carl is able to hit a super effective Hidden Power Bug, also managing to get the one-hit KO on Claydol. From here, Bob and Carl double up on Solrock with a Brick Break and a Hidden Power, as Lunatone wastes the only turn of the gym leader's team to go for a Calm Mind, kindly letting Bob and Carl finish them off in a similar fashion to their sun-shaped companion. With 7 badges down, I decide that it's time to take a break from my gym challenge to do some sightseeing around the island. I immediately regret doing so, as I run into my stalker again, but he leaves after he realizes that I've noticed him. I continue towards the Space Center, trying to forget about Scott, just to find that, even worse than my stalker, Team Magma is trying to take over the Space Center. I make my way to the heart of the space station where I find Steven, who's facing off against Maxie and his admin Tabitha, so I guess I'll go and help him. As Maxie spills his plans to just dump jet fuel into Mount Chimney to set it off, like, what? Not wanting to be an accessory to genocide, I decide to intervene. In the second team up with the champion of the series, Steven and I select 3 Pokemon apiece and start the battle. Maxie and Tabitha start off with their Mightyena and Camerupt, as I lead off with Bob and Steven his Metang. An Intimidate hits Bob as Metang's Clear Body renders it useless. I take the turn to swap Bob into Jeff, who takes a Swagger on the swap. Metang uses a Soft Metal Claw, and Camerupt gets a critical hit takedown on Jeff too. On the following turn, I swap back into Bob, who takes a takedown before Metang sets up a Reflect, and Camerupt just goes for Focus Energy. With Bob now in without the Intimidate, he finishes off Mightyena with a Brick Break. Metang does a chunk of damage on the now in Crobat with a Metal Claw, and tanks a soft takedown from the Camerupt. On the following turn, a Facade finishes off Crobat before Metang sets up a Light Screen, and Camerupt misses his move. Bob can then one-shot Maxie's Camerupt, as Metang does a good bit of damage with the Psychic. With Maxie's Pokemon taken care of, Steven and I can double up on Tabitha's remaining Pokemon. Camerupt goes down to a Facade, Golbat takes a hefty chunk of damage from the Metang Psychic before being finished off by a Horn Attack, and the final Mightyena is taken out with a single Brick Break from Bob. With Team Magma taken care of for now, Steven invites me to visit his home, which is actually located on the island. I drop in for a visit, and Steven gives us the Dive HM as thanks for helping him out at the Space Center, but not again without some snide comments that maybe the fight would be easier if I decided to work with useful Pokemon. I decide not to give him the satisfaction of an answer and leave before he talks any more trash about fighting types. With my final obstacle taken care of, we head to Sootopolis so that I'll be able to fly back later before finally diving down on Route 128 so that we can gain access to the Seafloor Cavern. I make my way through the Twisting Cavern and Malicious Aqua Grunts, and I also definitely don't get stuck on this children's rock puzzle before I find myself in a mysterious mist-filled room. I do find the Earthquake TM, which I promptly give to Bob, before finding a massive Pokemon in the center of the cavern. I'm not able to do anything else as Archie appears to monologue for a bit, right up into the point where he says he's going to make me disappear. Having heard all I need in order for this to qualify as self-defense, I send out my nuclear option in the battle, as Archie sends out his Mightyena, who attempts to put off his own demise by landing Intimidate to start with. It does no good, as a Brick Break knocks the Pokemon out cleanly in one hit. Archie then sends out his Crobat, as Bob takes a bit of burn damage. Bob isn't the nuclear option for nothing, as he outspeeds the bat and finishes him off with a single Facade. Archie Sharpedo's out next, but at this point, it's pretty obvious that like those who came before, Bob will outspeed and finish the battle with a single one-hit KO. Archie's a sore loser, and like Maxie, seems to have a big problem matching primary colors with one another, as he attempts to use the red orb on the massive blue Pokemon, who yeets himself out of the cavern and into the world above. Maxie shows up on his high horse, now apparently knowing the error of his ways and needing to do something about the mess that he and Archie made. The two of them take off, at which point Steven drops in out of nowhere, which I didn't even think he could do without a Pokemon Center present, before he also just takes off to try to fix the situation going on at Sootopolis. I fly to the city myself, where I see the awe-inspiring sight of two legendary forces of nature facing one another down, in an epic scene unlike anything that had been in the Pokemon games up to that point. With the plot progressed, Steven takes me to the Cave of Origin to meet a man named Wallace, who introduces himself as the previous gym leader of Sootopolis until something came up, which is a pretty nonchalant way to talk about becoming champion of the entire region. He informs me that there's a third super ancient Pokemon somewhere in the region who could stop Groudon and Kyogre from destroying the world, and fortunately for him, I'm about to bail him out and tell him exactly where the Big Green Noodle is. So with their meeting over, I head on out to the Sky Pillar, where I meet up with Wallace, who just forgot he didn't take me with him from the cave, before he once again falls through on me to do this on my own, saying that he needs to head back to Sootopolis, as though he's going to do anything other than wait for me to get there with the cavalry. But luckily for me, the Sky Pillar got a rework from Ruby and Sapphire, making the bike run up the tower much easier, so I'm able to reach Rayquaza without any issue. I then beat Rayquaza back to Sootopolis, somehow, so that I'm able to see the dragon ascend from the heavens to take care of the catastrophe.
You better stop!
The world now saved, Maxie and Archie just take off without any consequences, and everyone acts like the 10-year-old doing all of their jobs is par for the course. Though Wallace is nice enough to give me the Waterfall HM. Still can't get a handle on how kids are viewed in this world. But with the threat of a global decimation behind me, I head on ahead with the threat of the gym challenge, as I head into the Sootopolis gym to face down the next gym leader, Juan, and his water types. Or at least it would be a challenge, if not for the ultimate weapon to surpass Metal Gear, Bob. In a fairly anticlimactic 8th gym fight, Bob is able to just sweep Juan's whole team by once again having Guts active beforehand, landing a Facade on Love-Disc, Wishcash, Kingdra, and a Brick Break on Celio and Quadrant. I didn't mean to do a second Heracross as a GOAT episode, but I mean, it's just a tried and true fact. With the gym challenge overcome, my team of buff boys and I head on over to Evergrande City, which is really just a single Pokemon Center outside of a Victory Road. And we head inside to make our way through the Elite Four. We meet Wally soon after entering Victory Road, but with our team already halfway to the Elite Four level cap, we make quick work of our now not sickly but still green adopted son's Pokemon. But at least at this point, I can say that I am proud of him for making it this far, and actually having a pretty good team of Pokemon, even if I am going to judge him a bit for having a Gardevoir. But with everything else taken care of, we get our team to the level cap and settle on their movesets before heading in to face the Elite Four. Our fighting type showcase consists of Bob the Heracross, who has an adamant nature, as well as being pre-burnt with the Guts ability, and a moveset consisting of Earthquake, Mega Horn, Facade, and Brick Break. Jan the Breloom, who has a brave nature and the Effect Spore ability, and a moveset consisting of Mega Drain, Hidden Power Ghost, Mach Punch, and Leech Seed. Jeff 2 the Blaziken, who has a rash nature, as well as the Blaze ability, with the moveset consisting of Rock Smash, Mirror Move, Flamethrower, and Hidden Power Ice. Carl the Machamp, who has a naive nature, and who is also pre-burnt with the Guts ability, with the moveset consisting of Return, Dig, Cross Chop, and Hidden Power Bug. And last but not least, our tank of a Pokemon, Tom the Hariyama, who has the Careful nature, as well as also being pre-burnt with the Guts ability, the final moveset consisting of Fake Out, Rock Tomb, Strength, and Brick Break. With Bob at the head of the team, I head into the first room of the Elite Four to face Sydney, the Dark-type Pokemon trainer. He starts the battle off with his Mightyena, getting an Intimidate off on Bob, though it won't matter as a Brick Break, a Mega Horn, and 3 more Brick Breaks are enough to take out the first team of the Elite Four, with only burn damage doing anything to Bob. My favorite shift in recent years is the change to the Elite Four that allows you to fight them in any order, with all of their levels being consistent, so that you don't have blowouts like against poor Sid here. With the first battle done, we head into the second room where we find Phoebe, the Ghost-type Elite Four member. She starts the battle off with her first Dusclops, as I lead in with Jan, who's itching to show what she's made of. On the first turn, Dusclops goes for Protect, but on the second turn, Jan is able to hit Dusclops hard with a Hidden Power Ghost, leaving Phoebe's Ghost-type Mon with a Sliver before taking a soft Shadow Punch. Phoebe uses her first full restore, as Jan once again leaves Dusclops with an iota of health. Phoebe then does something odd, as she pulls her Dusclops out of the fight, swapping into her Banette, who takes the Hidden Power Ghost and the Dusclops' place and goes down in a single hit. Out next for Phoebe is her second Banette, who goes down in a similar fashion. Phoebe's fourth Pokemon is her second Dusclops, who is bulkier than that of her sister, so she survives with slightly more health before firing off a hard Ice Beam, leaving Jan in the yellow. Jan is able to finish the Ghost type off the next turn, allowing Phoebe to send in her first Dusclops. I opt to actually go for the weaker Mega Drain the next turn to avoid 2 full restore uses in a row, which prompts a Protect, before another Hidden Power can finally finish her off. Last out for Phoebe is Sableye, and I take the first turn to switch Jan out for Bob, who takes a Shadow Ball before destroying the Ghost Dark type with a single Earthquake. 2 of the Elite Four down and 2 to go as we approach the third room, which we find housing a verifiable Ice Scape and our third Elite Four member, Glacia. She tells us that what she wants most is a battle that she can go all out in, so not wanting to disappoint her, we lead off with Bob. She leads off with her first Celio, but Bob is able to make quick work of the Seal and every single other of Glacia's Pokemon, with the single Brick Break for the whole team. Guts boosted Bob is not playing around, no setup needed. With the Icy Room warmed up from that hot performance from Bob, my team is ready to go ahead and face the first real challenge of this Elite Four run, Drake the Dragon Master. Having a legendarily tough team with some seriously heavy hitters, we cautiously approach the fourth room and get ready for a showdown. Drake starts the battle off with his Shieldgun, as I lead in with Jeff 2, who's been itching to prove himself as worthy of being my starter. On the first turn, a Protect prolongs Shellgun's life, before a Hidden Power Ice on the following turn puts him back in his Pokeball. Next out for Drake is his Flygon, but unfortunately for the Dragon Master, a 4-time super effective Hidden Power is more than enough to finish the Green Dragon. Drake's third Pokemon is similarly affected and taken out by Ice Hidden Power, but Jeff 2 has a slight issue when it comes to Drake's fourth Pokemon, Kingdra. On the first turn, a Hidden Power Ice does a small chunk of damage on the Water Dragon, who goes for a dangerous Dragon Dance. On the second turn, Jeff 2 is outsped and hit hard with a Surf, surviving at just 20 HP. He then gets off another Hidden Power, leaving Kingdra at about a third of his health in the yellow. Not wanting to lose our oldest friend for the second time, I swap out into Bob, who tanks a Body Slam, living with less than half of his health after burn damage. Fortunately, Bob is able to outspeed on the next turn to finish the Water Dragon. Next out for Drake is his Beastly Salamence, and I know that I have to swap due to the Dragon's Intimidate, so I take the next turn to trade Bob out for Tom, who should be able to finish off the Monstrous Dragon with a Fake Out and 2 Rock Tombs, as well as being able to take the Flamethrower fairly well in the swap. Tom is able to get chip damage on the next turn with a Fake Out, before taking a hard Dragon Claw on the following turn, surviving with just 70 HP. Tom takes his chance to go for the Rock Tomb, and he misses. With this much health, I know Tom can survive a non-crit, but he won't make it past the burn damage. None of my other Pokemon would be able to survive 2 hits from the Pseudo Legendary, and neither of our speedy teammates are at enough health to take the hit for our Wall Tom. So with a heavy heart, I have Tom use a Rock Tomb on this, his last turn. He survives the non-crit Dragon Claw and gets a clean hit with his move, leaving Salamence at low health in the yellow, proving that if the first Rock Tomb had landed, it would have been enough for poor Tom to make it through this battle. With Tom's sacrifice, Jeff 2 is able to get a free switch into the battle, where he's able to finish Rick's final Pokemon with a Hidden Power Ice. With my heart broken at the loss of a teammate, Bob, Jeff 2, Carl, Jan, and I push forward, feeling as though we're being weighed down by a Tom-shaped hole in the team. I was so close to making it to the end without losing any of my friends. We'd almost become a team of champions without the pain and hardships of loss. But with that one low accuracy miss, Tom is gone, and everything is worse now because of it. I look up to find that I've made my way to the champion's room. I see Wallace in front of me, and he's saying something. I snap back to focus at the words, "All by yourself." Wallace catches and corrects himself, noting that I wasn't alone. I had my Pokemon with me. But he's right, we were alone. Sure, we had each other, but I'm a kid. I'm just some child on this gym challenge. There are adults who should be taking care of these emergencies. I shouldn't have to be risking life and limb with my team for the sake of all others. That's the champion's job, isn't it? And aren't there 2 perfectly good champions in this region? Lance might have been slightly unhinged, and far too quick to hyper beam any thug that crossed his path, but he did what he could to upkeep peace in his region. Wallace, and to an even greater extent, the rich kid who abandoned his post, Steven, decided that with great power comes great non-culpability, both shoving their duties on others, and happily accepting the positive outcome through the hard work of others. These aren't the actions of a true champion, so I'm going to have to strip that title away, and make sure that it stays only with the worthy. Wallace begins the battle for the championship with his massive Wailord, as I start the battle off with Bob. On the first turn, I have Bob use his newly learned Bulk Up, as Wailord goes for a fairly strong double edge. With Bob now having a high enough attack to enact our plan, he finishes the Wailord with a single Facade, our bug having reached his nuclear potential. Wallace sends out his Wishcast second, which also goes down to a single Facade. Wallace's third Pokemon is Tentacruel, and an Earthquake is enough to finish the Hentai monster. Ludicolo is out next, and like those who came before, Bob sends the Fiesta Pokemon to the Pokemon Center. Gyarados is out 5th, and even through an Intimidate, Bob gets the one-hit KO. Bob's burn leaves him with just 8 HP left, and out last for the champion is his Ace Milotic. The whole reason that we needed the Bulk Up on the first turn, given the Intimidate from the Gyarados. One final Facade from Bob takes the Seep Serpent out cleanly, Bob managing to sweep the champion, ensuring the safety of his friends, as he couldn't for Tom. I got the champion title, but without Tom standing alongside us, I'm not quite able to enjoy the victory. I make my way back home to Little Root Town, and see my mom briefly before turning into my room for the first time in what feels like ages. What I don't expect is to get a summons from who else but the carefree ex-champion Steven, who says he has a surprise for me in honor of my win against Wallace. I make my way to Moss Deep and head into Steven's house, and there, on the table, is a Pokeball and a note. In the Pokeball is Steven's favorite Pokemon, and on the note, Swolbi. Sorry about Tim dying against that loser Phoebe. I told you fighting types couldn't hack it. Here, take this Pokemon and you'll finally have your first non-awful teammate. My blood boils. Steven has been disrespecting my Pokemon and me since I met him, and now he has the gall to mock my lost friend. Jeff 2, Bob, Carl, Jan, and I go on a tear through the region, perfecting our team. We're going to show Steven exactly how non-awful my fighting types are, and we're going to leave him lying on the ground where we find him, unable to utter another vile word. After an eternity of hunting him down, I find the millionaire playing with rocks in the back of some cave. The stress-free look on his face shows me all I need to know. He doesn't know what's coming. So with an angry roar, I challenge Steven to battle. My 4 Pokemon and I ready to finish this. For Tom. Steven starts the battle off with the defensive wall that is Skarmory, as we lead him with Jeff 2. Jeff 2 is able to heat things up with a Flamethrower that finishes the Jet Plane Pokemon in a single hit. Out second for Steven is his Aggron, who Jeff 2 is able to hit for quad super effective damage and send flying with a 1-Sky Uppercut. Steven is sweating now as he sends in his ace, Metagross. Jeff 2 keeps a cool head as he once again launches a shockingly powerful Flamethrower, finishing the Psychic Tank off with 1 hit. Steven's face flashes with shock as he sends in his 4th Pokemon, Armaldo. The Rock Bug tanks a Flamethrower with a sliver of health, before hitting a hard Aerial Ace, leaving Jeff 2 just above half. Steven goes for a full restore, and the Flamethrower brings the Ancient Bug type back to the yellow. On the following turn, Jeff 2 finishes the Armaldo off, prompting Steven to send in his Claydol. From here, I take the safe switch from Jeff 2 into Jan, who takes less than 20% from an Earthquake. On the following turn, Jan lands as Leech Seed, as Claydol sets up a Reflect. Claydol tanks Jan's following Giga Drain well, before launching another weak Earthquake. With the setup safely managed, I swap out into Carl in the next turn, who manages an Earthquake well before burn damage and Leech Seed recovery. Carl is then able to outspeed the doll and land a super effective hidden power bug for the KO. Steven is now finally down to his last Pokemon, Cradilly, and with a stab, guts boosted Cross Chop, Carl is able to obliterate the plant back to extinction, defeating Steven, defending the honor of fighting types everywhere, and winning us the attempt at our fighting type hardcore Nuzlocke in Pokemon Emerald. Alright, and with that, we have reached the end of our third fighting type monologue. I want to thank everybody who's still here for watching and sticking around to the end, and I hope you enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed making it. I want to do something a little bit different for my Gen 4 Nuzlocke with fighting types, since I kind of did 2 Heracross runs in a row. So I want to just add a little bit of that extra challenge, since, you know, fighting types are obviously the best type, and we want to make it more entertaining throughout. So, once again, this is Swolbi and Kenobi, signing off.